All right, let's dive deep into a true giant of literary modernism, James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Now, if you're gearing up for competitive literature exams, you know this text is one you absolutely have to master. So we're going to break down all the essential pieces you need to know, starting with the one huge question that sits right at its heart. See, this question is the engine of the entire book. The whole novel is just a relentless search for an answer. It's not just telling a story, it's a journey into the very consciousness of an artist. So let's keep this question in mind as our guide while we unpack this masterpiece. So here's how we're going to tackle it, in 5 key parts. We'll kick things off with the context. You gotta understand Joyce's Ireland. Then, we'll follow Stephen's early life. From there, we'll get into the real drama, his crisis between faith and art. After that, we'll see his big artistic awakening. And finally, we'll wrap up with the core themes and symbols you absolutely need to have down for any exam. Okay, so first things first, to really get a handle on our main character, Stephen Dedalus, you first have to understand the Ireland that created him. And, just as importantly, you have to understand the author, James Joyce, whose own life is basically the blueprint for the whole novel. And this right here is a crucial point. This book is super autobiographical. Stephen Dedalus is pretty much Joyce's literary alter ego. I mean, he goes to the exact same schools as Joyce, Clongowes, Belvedere, University College, all set against the backdrop of a very chaotic Dublin. This isn't just a story Joyce made up, it's practically a self-portrait. It's a direct window into his own artistic coming of age. Yeah, the Ireland of Joyce's youth was a total pressure cooker. You had this intense struggle against British rule that was tearing the country apart. There were fierce arguments between nationalists who wanted revolution and those, like the political leader Charles Parnell, who wanted home rule. And then, bam, the fall of Parnell after a personal scandal that the Catholic Church condemned him for was like an earthquake. It ripped Irish society apart, and the book is just filled with the tremors from that massive political and religious betrayal. So think about it. If you're a writer, how do you even begin to capture a world that's so fractured and chaotic? Well, Joyce's answer was pretty radical. He decided to completely reinvent the novel itself. He knew that a simple, traditional story just couldn't capture the messiness of the modern mind. He needed a brand new tool for the job. And this was his game-changing tool, the stream of consciousness. Instead of having some narrator on the outside telling us what Stephen is thinking, Joyce just drops us directly inside Stephen's head. We get to experience the world through his own raw, unfiltered thoughts, his memories, his feelings. This technique makes you, the reader, a direct participant in his journey. The real plot of the novel becomes what's happening inside his mind. Okay, so we've got the context, we've got the technique. Now let's see how Joyce actually builds this character, this mind, from the ground up. We're going to follow Stephen from his very first childhood memories right up to the moment he's about to become an artist. Now here's a term you'll definitely want to know for your exams, Bildungsroman. It's really just a fancy German word for a coming-of-age novel. Portrait is a perfect example, but with a modern twist. You could even get more specific and call it a Künstlerroman, which is the story of an artist's development. Every single thing that happens in the book is seen through that lens. How does this event shape Stephen, not just as a person, but as a creative soul? This timeline really maps out those key stages. It all starts with the hazy sensory world of a little kid. Then comes the shock of boarding school at Clongowes and his first taste of injustice. And then, oh man, that infamous Christmas dinner scene, where the fight over Parnell and the church just completely shatters his childhood innocence. Later on, at Belvedere College, he really starts grappling with the big forces that will define him: sin, guilt, and the very first whispers of his artistic calling. So, who is this kid really? Well, right from the start, Stephen's an outsider. He's not the strong, athletic type. He's frail, but he has this incredibly rich inner life, and he notices everything. As he gets older, that sensitivity kind of hardens into this moody, intellectual angst. He is completely torn apart by the battle between his super strict Catholic upbringing and his own natural desires. And believe me, this internal war is the real engine that drives this entire book forward. And that brings us to the absolute core of Stephen's struggle. This isn't just some teenage drama. It's a full-blown spiritual war for his soul. It's a battle between two incredibly powerful and totally opposite callings. This slide really lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? You can see the two paths stretched out in front of him. On one side, you've got the church, offering him the life of a priest. That means order, spiritual peace, and rejecting all the messy parts of life. But on the other side, you have the life of an artist. And that path is all about embracing life's experiences, finding beauty in the everyday world, demanding total freedom, and accepting human nature, flaws and all. Stephen is caught right in the middle. So you've got this impossible choice, right? How on earth does he resolve it? Well, it doesn't happen through some long logical debate. The answer comes to him in a flash, a sudden, powerful moment of insight that changes absolutely everything. And this is where another key Joycean idea comes into play, the epiphany. Joyce basically borrowed this religious term and gave it a new life in literature. For him, an epiphany is a sudden moment of deep understanding, where some ordinary thing suddenly reveals a much deeper truth. It's a showing forth of reality, and Stephen is about to have the biggest one of his life. So picture this. Stephen has just turned down an offer to join the priesthood. He's walking on a beach, probably feeling totally confused and lost. And then he sees a girl wading in the water. And the sight of her, this vision of pure, real, earthly beauty, it hits him like a bolt of lightning. In that 1 second, his path becomes crystal clear. His true calling isn't to reject the world for God, but to embrace the beauty of this world and turn it into art. This is it. This is the moment the artist Stephen Dedalus is truly born. And this quote from the very end of the novel is basically his artistic mission statement. He decides he has to leave, to go into exile, so he can forge in the smithy of his soul the uncreated conscience of his race. It's like he's becoming a new kind of priest, an artist blacksmith who's going to hammer out a new way of seeing for the Irish people. Okay, let's pull back for a second and bring this all together. For any kind of critical analysis, and especially for an exam, you have to have a solid grip on the novel's main themes and its biggest, most important symbol. So here are 4 huge themes to keep in your pocket. First, this idea of spiritual homelessness. Stephen feels like an outsider long before he ever actually leaves Ireland. Second, nationality and freedom. He pushes back against Irish nationalism because to him, it's just another net trying to trap his soul. Third, that constant battle between the soul and the body that we saw in his spiritual crisis. And finally, that classic journey from innocence to experience that defines any good coming-of-age story. Now, for the single most important symbol in the entire book. You can't miss it. It's right there in his last name, Dedalus. And that is absolutely no accident. Joyce deliberately chose that name to connect Stephen to the myth of Dedalus, the master craftsman and inventor from Greek mythology. He's framing Stephen as a modern-day version of that legendary artist. And this chart just nails the comparison, right? The mythical Dedalus built a physical maze, a labyrinth. For Stephen, Ireland itself has become a kind of psychological labyrinth, a maze of politics, religion, and social rules that are trying to trap him. And just like the original Dedalus built wings to fly out of his island prison, Stephen believes he has to use the wings of his art and exile to escape Ireland and finally be free. And this is his ultimate goal. He declares he wants to fly by those nets, nationality, language, religion. He sees them as traps designed to keep a person's soul from taking flight. His entire artistic mission is to soar above all of that. So the myth of Dedalus isn't just a clever symbol. It's the very blueprint for Stephen's destiny as an artist.
And that leaves us with the novel's big, lingering question. It's one that every artist, in some way, has to face. Stephen believes that leaving home is the price he must pay for artistic freedom. But what is the true cost of that freedom? What do you gain when you take that flight? And what do you lose for good? Your family, your home, a part of who you are? That's the powerful, unanswered question right at the heart of Joyce's masterpiece.